Okay, so let's get this party started. The POC Prison, why agentic systems never escape the labs, and if you wanted to change that, how to fix that in 90 days. So there is a very, very famous quote by Dan Ariely, and he originally said that about big data, but I found this so relevant for agentic AI. And it's agentic AI that is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it. Nobody knows how to do this. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they are doing it. Yeah, it's a good one to take a picture of, I know. So there is an illusion of progress, and the illusion of progress is that everyone is doing AI. My customers are like that all the time. Yeah, we want to do something with AI. And that means they have a lot of spreadsheets. They call them AI use cases.xlsx. Oh, that was you. Sorry. I did not want to reveal that. But so they have this long list of spreadsheets. And in their discussions, there's agentic AI everywhere. And they have a gazillion of strategy decks. So for the older ones among us, that's a PowerPoint. But the reality is that all of those so-called AI/agentic use cases, they're just like rule-based automation. And it's very old ideas, so things that we could have done 5, 10, 15, 20, even 25 years ago. And there is a lot of islands that are not connected to anything there, so there is no real transformation included. And if we then look at that and say, yes, but also no, because for that to be happening, you would first need to do your homework, and I will explain later on what I mean with homework. Then they say, yeah, well, AI isn't just ready yet. So I would like to introduce you to the map of every organization's AI landscape. So please note the North Star. We have delay, chaos, confusion, and depth. We walk through the fog of very unclear ownership. On the left, there's the graveyard of abandoned POCs from last year or last season or last quarter. There are the ruins of last year's platform. There's the swamp of shared Excel truth. The river of endless escalations. Obviously, we have just like a super nice bazaar of vendor promises. They just like promise you heaven. The maze of approval loops, then there is a lake of synthetic data, doesn't so many things, but unfortunately, the bridge to production is permanently closed, so there is no way that we get into this holy land of production, because, yeah, we might have something like the innovation bubble dome, just like who has an R&D innovation bubble task force, something AI in their organization. Show of hands? Yeah, I thought so. And they produce a lot of great ideas, but yeah, they never ever run in prod. So is that you? Do you recognize yourself somewhere here? Okay. So hi, my name is Luise. I'm an architect. I build cool stuff with Azure and AI that actually run in production. My motto is changing the world one app at a time. I'm a princess, I'm a punk at heart, I'm a pretty happy runner. I'm a mother of teenage dragons, which makes me a mother of dragons. I'm a healthy foodie. I'm a Microsoft MVP in 2 categories. I'm an open sorceress, troublemaker. It's my first time at NDC in Copenhagen. Never been to Copenhagen before, but that is just like super cool. I love to talk in general, but also about DevOps, about testing, requirements engineering, all the good stuff. AI, of course, as well. I started originally in tech in M365, so my blog runs at m365princess.com. But also, I have a website. It's escape.pocprison.com. So if you're like just like more into the framework and not into the blogs, you can check that out as well. So let's connect if you like to. I go by she, her. I'm very nerdy. I love Lego. Where are my Lego people? Lego? Yeah, Denmark? Okay, no, so that's good. I believe in sharing is caring. My favorite color is FF69B4. That is hot pink. My number is 42. And after all of that, I am still a consultant, so I say it depends a lot. Yes. Okay. So who's into dinosaurs? I think we ask not enough the question, what is your favorite dinosaurs? Mine is Triceratops, but just like this T-Rex. So the T-Rex happened just like 67 million years ago, and that's to just like now, that is just like literally the same time as just like having the prototype and bringing that into production, because it takes ages. So if this is you, so there is this very, very vicious agent life cycle. So you're at a conference, like this one, and you see that anyone can build those amazing agents, and the agents, they reason, and they orchestrate, and they act, and they call the tools, and MCP, and just like, insert your favorite buzzword here, so they do the things, and then back in the office, because you just like return to the office full of ideas and just like super inspired, you realize that to do this, you would need to have clean data. Who has that? Who has clean data? I want to talk with you after after this talk. And also, you would need to just like have a project and really executive support, and realizing that you do not have clean data nor unmessy processes, nor ownership, nor clearly defined roles, because you work in a messy corporate environment. And even if you work in a super hip startup and wear just like very cool sneakers like I do, then still you are pretty much screwed because you don't have all of that. So you opt for a POC. And that sounds just like super reasonable, because we learned that we need to do a POC first, right? So we all collectively learned that. So with your fake data and your fake process agent that does not connect with real users and no measurable value, you unfortunately do not get to excite the C-suite. Bummer. And such a surprise, right? And that means that you do not have budget and no executive sponsorship either. And then you say, yeah, well, AI doesn't really work, or we are not ready for AI, but it means the very same thing. So there is something that I call Schrödinger's AI. So we all know what is Schrödinger's cat. That is the cat that is in the box with the poison. And unless we open the box, we don't know if the cat is dead or alive. And the same is for an agent or an agentic system. So if we do not put that into a production environment with real users and real data, and connecting to our legacy systems that still are in place, then we don't know if the agent is alive or it's dead. And then it's more like an AI zombie. So it's not really dead, but it's still just like walking around like this. So not the best idea. So the POCs. So yes, they are necessary. It's a super safe way to explore some uncertainty, and it's a low-risk validation of our ideas, and we learned this over years. And this is especially useful when just like a lot of users are affected. So we do not want to roll out an experiment to 200K users. Don't do that. Don't try at home. So they have their place. But they do become an easy trap, just like if there is no defined path to production before the POC exists. That does not need to exist after the POC exists, but before. And if we do not have an owner beyond our experimental phase, if the scaling was never designed, then temporary becomes very, very permanent. The most permanent solutions. Right, okay. So the super ugly reality is that even the well-intended POC die before they deliver value. And your fragile and super duct tape solutions somehow sneak into production accidentally. And then they stay there forever. And then they create more risk and more compliance. So you're screwed again. And that means the worst systems don't scale, and the best ideas often don't, which is just like quite the opposite from what we wanted in the first place. So if agents don't make it to prod, that failure rarely, is just like, oh, I used the wrong model, or I have the not so fancy prompt, so don't listen to the reply guys on LinkedIn. It is not that. So if we really talk about enterprise integration, we have some bigger tasks to tackle than if it's just like Sonnet or Opus or whatever. So the technical lens obviously is, can this survive contact with reality, real data? And I don't mean your curated samples or your synthetic sets that you prepared weeks in advance to just like demo this. Repeatable pipelines. Yes, even on a Friday. So my pipelines run on Fridays as well. So not just like someone ran a script on their local machine, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So being there as well, and it's not fun. Version deployments, not manual changes. So things did not change in terms of DevOps just because we're doing AI. We still need to apply our craft. Monitoring, rollback, cost controls need to be built in, just like from the get-go, not applied afterwards, like this is just like some nice-to-have add-on, which is just like a fancy bow that we just like put on top of a present. If your agent fails here, that is usually because there is no production foundation to stand on. It's like your organization is behaving like that was their first software to ever publish. And if that's the case, hire someone who knows what they are doing. Just because we lower the barrier to write correct syntax with just like lots of agents doesn't mean that this decathlon, this just like 10 disciplinary just like competition that we need to run to just like fulfill the craft of making software, that does not apply anymore. We only lowered one barrier. Then there is the organizational lens, because it's not all tech. So the techie problems are the easy ones to solve. The people-y problems are the harder ones. So who owns this when it breaks? And we can't just like blame the organization. So, but we need an accountable owner, not just like a steering committee. Who owns that? And if your answer to that is the business or IT department, you're holding this wrong. It needs to be a person, someone who lives and breathes just like with a beating heart and hopefully a mind as well. We need to have just like very, very clear decision and action boundaries for our agents. Don't build these agents that are just like the general purpose, does everything. First, it does nothing right. And second, this is a nightmare to govern. Then funding that covers the operation side, not just like the experimentation, so just like ongoing budget. And if that is something where it's like, yeah, we need to see after the POC, then your POC is a finish line and not a starting point for a product. And I want you, if that's your role, so if you're in the business of making software, which is like, it's kind of likely if I meet you here at this conference, but, well, I might be biased. But I want you to create a product, even if you don't sell it, but just like a product, and not just like stages like experimental. Then what we need, governance and design for delivery. Not just like review meetings. So if it only lives in a meeting or in a slide deck, it does not exist to me. And that means if your agent fails here, that is, responsibility is gone before you go live. So if people are just like, no, no, that's not my, I'm out of the picture here, you have just like an organizational responsibility problem. And then we have the cultural lens. And the cultural lens is pretty similar to the organizational one, but it's just like less obvious. So if you have a culture that rewards a lot of demos rather than just like deployment frequency, for example. If leadership needs to clap, and if you prepare something for leadership to clap and not take care of good deployment practices, then you're screwed again. We want measured impact, and we need early exposure to real users and friction. And of course, this will cause friction. And if your organization is afraid of that, then all your efforts are likely to be undermined, even if you technically do the right things. So most agents here they will fail because the safest move is to never ship. That is just like, so we're anxious, we have fear, and if we don't do anything, we also can't do anything wrong. So if that's your organization, just leave. Throwing AI on top of anything that is already shit just means now that you have sparkly shit. So in case you wonder, that is the Microsoft Foundry icon in the middle, but just like, you can exchange that in your mind for any AI tool of your choice. They are pretty interchangeable. Who's familiar with that meme? Yes, you're my people. So all modern infrastructure. And of course, there's a gazillion of different variations of this meme. That is enterprise reality. Everything runs on Excel. Why is that? Because people can just like build what they need without getting IT involved, without getting legal involved, without getting finance involved, without needing a budget, and so on and so forth. And it's ugly, and it's duct tape, and it is not how I envision that, but they are doing this since 40 years, and they will continue to do so unless we offer them something that is evenly nice for them and actionable. Now, of course, this does not get better. Right? So AI is, of course, making this harder. So agentic AI that looks like a tech problem, but in fact, it's an organizational reality problem. All of you have seen all those brilliant agent demos, and some of you even built those or demoed those, or you're just like about to do this, and they do all the cool things, but we never take care of, okay, so what happens after they clapped? So what happens after I convinced everyone in the room that I had the perfect model, the perfect problem, I call all the tools, and it does amazing things, and then replaces me? No, it doesn't. So what happened afterwards? So that is the POC Prison problem, so that you're stuck in that situation where you produce yet another agentic system that does not connect to your enterprise reality, and then yet another one, and another one, and another one, and just like, and that record plays on and on and on and on. So what we needed to do is, we needed to establish an operating model for agents before we create the agents. Who of you has an R&D team, innovation bubble, task force, AI team, who celebrates AI week in their company? Okay, so do you also celebrate finance week just to celebrate that you pay your invoices? Yeah, no, we don't. So it is so silly, and still we're all just like, yeah, AI week, this is so cool, and they have stickers. Yeah, the fuck. So that is usually, AI starts in those bubbles. And now I need to expose you to, when I was a kid, there was a famous Disney movie, Aladdin. Everyone knows that. And the genie exposes Aladdin to the golden rule. Anyone familiar with the golden rule? Who has the gold makes the rules. That is the golden rule. And that means if the innovation bubble dome does not have the money, then we will not deliver results, because the results will always follow the money, even in an organization. And for example, the innovation budgets versus run budgets. So that is experimental versus operational. Then no end-to-end owner. Business owns the value, but IT owns the system, but data teams own the data, but nobody owns the outcome. And then it's just like so fragmented that everyone points with their finger at the next person, and nothing ever gets done. And then there's something that I call FearOps. That's even worse than ClickOps. Yeah, ClickOps is already bad. Just like, I don't want to clickety-clackety, draggety-drop it. No, just don't. But just like FearOps means, yeah, my agents, they can execute steps, just like creating tickets, changing records, triggering workflows. They do the cool stuff. But if my agent now is allowed to do stuff and not only chat with me in a separate window where it can't cause any harm and also don't deliver any value, but also can't cause any harm, so who's responsible if it makes a wrong change? Can it only approve, or can it suggest? And how do we audit those decisions? And usually, when organizations are faced with those questions, they are like, oh, we don't have answers to this yet, so we will keep this as a POC. And then this label of a POC that shields you from those questions, because then you do not need to answer those anymore. And then this is a reinforcing loop, which is bad. And then we have no real KPIs, and we have no adoption data, and we don't have any uncomfortable truth. And then it is super, super easy to sell all of these experimentation that delivers no actual value and doesn't transform anything as transformation to the leadership. And then all the people, just like in the suits with the ties, they clap again. I hate that. So POC is just super safe, temporary, unmeasured, reversible. Everything is lovely, so we're in unicorn land. But our reality is just like way more stubborn, because going live, that would mean just like compliance friction and accountability and skeptical users who need to be convinced and ugly data. And that is the shitty data our agents run on. Incomplete records. Nulls where no nulls are expected. Conflicting sources. Expectations nobody documented at all, because why would they? And our POCs are just like super narrow scenarios and only the happy path only and the clean sample data and just like unicorn land again. So we have those Excel files and the manual exports and the email attachments and the handily curated data. So what could possibly go wrong? So this is the data estate of most organizations I work with. I'm not saying that their desks look like this. That is more like a metaphor, right? The problem is that somewhere there's the most important data of the universe, and we don't know that. And data looks like this. So this is an iceberg. You know, the majority of the iceberg sits underneath the waterline, so we don't know what it is, where it is, how much it is. Across organization, industries, branches, everything, 11% business critical data, which means that is the stuff that you need for your work. You need that, and you know where it is. That's 11%, which means every 10th file. That is important. Then we have about a fifth to a quarter ROT data. That is redundant, obsolete, trivial. That is the garbage. It is very visible. We know that it's garbage, but still we do not throw it away, because it could be that in the garbage we find the most important file of the universe, so we can't throw this. Yeah, no, girl. So we don't do this because we do not want to be blamed, so this is again a cultural issue as well. And do you have any clue what sits beneath the waters, underneath the waterline? Dark data. We have absolutely fucking no clue. We don't know that. And therefore, we don't touch it, because yet again, and that is just like 2/3 of our data. So now we have this amazing agent, and in order for it to go live, we need to have the compliance review, so we need to get the stamp, right? So we invite them after we demoed everything to leadership, and the leadership clapped because the agent did a thing. It changed a record, and we're like, wow, how much time do we save? How many people can I fire? Oh, no, we won't fire those. We will just, whatever. But how are the prompts logged? And is the training data traceable? And can we explain the decisions? And where does the data leave our tenants? And then, of course, the cheapest option, again, is to just like stop here. And then it lingers around again. AI zombie. So what that looks like, and that is a little bit small, I realize that. So let's skip over that. What we usually have is just like we have a few levels of agentic AI, and you heard that before. So level 1 or level 0, we start at 0. That is chatbot only. We ask questions in a separate window. It doesn't deliver value. It doesn't cause harm. This is the Ask My Policy bot. Everyone has a bot that just like crawls their intranet because the intranet is shitty, because it was just like built 15 years ago. Who has that? Their company? Yes. And how often do you use that? And is it valuable? but also it doesn't cause harm. Level 1, that will be just like AI as an advisor, just like decision support. That is already good, and leadership says, hey, we developed an AI agent. They didn't, but it's fine. Level 2, that would be just like AI that can execute tasks, and executing tasks means I can also cause harm. And that is usually the phase where your POC prison starts to exist. And then we have level 3, which would be the AI is a process owner, just like conditional autonomy, so executing end-to-end with guardrails. And that is, for example, handle all standard refund requests under 100 euros and escalate edge cases. And that is just like super, super easy to do. And then there is something that we just like very, very often see in keynotes, especially, and never ever in production. And that would be AI as an autonomous operator. That is super rare, which means something like continuously balance an energy grid by autonomously adjusting production, storage, and load to maintain frequency of cold targets. So that is just like what my customers wanted me to do, and obviously that did start as a POC, but the path to production existed before as well. So please don't confuse this with fake level 4, an AI agent that autonomously resolves customer cases end-to-end, but needs human approval for all their decisions. Just like that is not a good human in the loop example. So how to escape? So if we know that the POCs don't fail because they are too small, but because there is no path to ownership, to production and learning, then it would be lovely to build this. But if we now just like set up for an 18-month project to establish that path, then we lose momentum, and also we do not really get funding for that. So what I did is I created a 90-day program for my customers to work through that. And what my customers want is probably what your customers or what your organization wants as well, and that is a RAG-enabled multimodal, fine-tuned, continuously improving, context-aware across all enterprise systems, trained on all internal, but somehow on external data as well, fully GDPR compliant, explainable yet magically accurate, hallucination-free but still creative, autonomous but only when asked, proactive but never annoying, perfectly governed, fully auditable, enterprise-ready, SAP integrated, very important, I live in Germany. Zero-shot, few-shot, no-shot, future-proof, infinitely scalable, deployable by Friday, maintained by nobody, cheap, instant, risk-free, and basically just ChatGPT, just made for us agent. That is what my customers want. Easy, right? Easy peasy. So, 90-day program, what that is, structured transition from experimentation to production, focused on outcomes, not on ideation, because we had all the good ideas, we have the ugly duct tape, so the good ideas are already there, and designed for messy and legacy-heavy environments. It is not an innovation sprint, it is not a tool rollout. I don't care about your tools, I don't care in which environment you are, so this is just like totally platform agnostic. It's about model competition or a demo factory, so that is not what it is. It's a transition program. So, how we get out of POC prison. So first, structure. The first 30 days is grounded in reality, and that means we need to document how the process actually runs today. Not just like what we envisioned, what it could be doing, just like dreaming, fantasizing. You can do that at night or daytime, just like whatever floats your boat, just like, not here, just like, but we will just like look at the ugly reality, and we will write things down, even if that hurts, including all your spreadsheets and your manual steps and your workarounds and all of your shadow IT and shadow AI and your data quality issues and all your existing controls. And explicitly, we will identify what prevents production today. Is this technical? Is this organizational? Is this political? Is this regulatory? So we will pinpoint this. Even if we think, whoa, this will be ugly, but it is a look into the mirror that you deserve, because you allowed all of that to happen in the first place as well. Next 30 days is commitment and accountability. And that means we select one initiative that must go live. And that can be a hello world thing. That does not need to be a super elaborate agent system that does a lot of cool things. We will just use that as the first tool to travel our paved road, our path to production. And for that, it is more important that we have the paved road than how fancy the tool is that travels on that. So first, we build the highway, and then we build the car that can just go on a journey. What we will do, we will name one accountable business owner, you know, the one with the heart and the mind. We will define what decisions the systems may take, what requires human approval, and what success is measured, actually. And we will agree on minimum governance required to operate safely. No general frameworks, and only what this case needs. That is very challenging for most organizations I work with. Yeah. Last 30 days, production under supervision. So we will deploy into real systems and real workflows. We will operate the system with real users. No, not the 3 other guys that sit with you in the same office, basement, / whatever. No, we don't do that. We will monitor costs, behavior, failures, escalation paths, yes, in real time. I want dashboards. I don't want slide decks. If it's in PowerPoint, it doesn't exist. If it's in a meeting, it doesn't exist. It needs to be in the pipeline, and the pipeline that feeds a dashboard. I want the reality, not just like someone fantasizing about reality. So we will fix what breaks instead of redesigning the entire concept. So that is the structure. Of course, I'm aware of organizational reality. So it is not just like such a new thought, just like to do it one time the right way. That is not the new thing. The new thing is a delivery model that focuses first on the paved road. And that means teams can use pre-approved environments. So we need to build those, yes. 30 days are there for that exactly. Data access patterns, security controls, deployment pipelines. So this removes the need for just like repeated approvals and just like asking again. It's just, oh, are you the right person? No, you need to ask my skip manager, or just like maybe Anna knows who the fuck. No, don't do that. And it just like prevents one-off solutions that never scale. So whenever we do something, we need to make sure that this thing is repeatable. One-off is a no-no. And that is not only true for prompts. That is also true just like for making sure that users can use your software with secure deployments. Governance needs to be embedded in execution. And that is what I mean with it can't live in a PowerPoint slide deck or whatever you use. I don't care. So the rules around the data use and risk and auditability and access, they are implemented in the delivery process, not outside or later on, but just like inside the delivery process. And they are not reviewed afterwards only. And compliance is demonstrated through the logs and the artifacts that it produces, and not in slide decks. And who does all of that? That needs to be a Tiger team. For everyone who is not aware of what is a Tiger team, that is just like a small and very cross-functional team that got authorized to make their own decisions, yes, within guardrails, but that can, for example, circumvent the procurement policy to get shit done. And that, of course, needs a very powerful executive sponsor so that they can sign off this authorization beforehand so that the Tiger team can get their work done instead of being stuck in this mess that usually is organizational or enterprise reality. And that, of course, avoids steering committees and endless meetings, and it reduces all the handoffs and the overhead, and keeps accountability intact. And then we have the success criteria. So after 90 days, one AI capability is running in prod. with a named owner, defined authority boundaries, measurable usage, measurable, and visible operational impact. And when I talk about operational impact, then I don't mean how many hours did you save. I mean, do we have revenue growth? Do we have better talent retention? Are we more attractive as an employer? I mean, just like something that is worth to improve. If nothing goes live within 90 days, this program has failed successfully. Because that means that this organization was not willing to commit and willing to own outcomes of AI. And that is a fair result as well. And within this program, we can see where this happened and then blame people. OK, why is this 90 days? Super easy, so that is long enough to hit real systems, to integrate with SAP and Salesforce and just like all the ugly apps and the ugly data. But it is short enough to kill any drama because you do not simply have time for the drama. So I only like to observe drama, just like on the TV, I'm super into that. But just like drama inside organizations, that is just like, that is slowing down everyone. And it will force trade-offs. So yes, not everything will be perfect, but still you will build the road, and you need to build the road. It prevents, yeah, let's align later, or let's do another round of reviews, or let's wait for the next budget cycle. It just like prevents this because you know that you exactly have 90 days and there's no exceptions. And I now did this program with just like various customers 22 times, about to conclude the 23rd time, and all of them have 1 or 2 use cases running in prod, connecting with real data after the 90 days latest. So it can work if you want to. So governance needs to be governance as code. Governance is not a conversation to have had just like later on in the process. So if governance today lives in meetings and in some PDFs and tribal knowledge, like if you do not make your implicit knowledge explicit, then every POC, because for the next thing that you learn at a conference, oh, we could integrate that as well, cool, then the very same debate starts again. So this is just like Groundhog Day every day. And we don't want this. So compliance becomes a veto nowadays, and not an accelerator, and it could be an accelerator to building agents. And if you do a governance as code approach, then this means the rules are executable, not discussable anymore. And it means that the approvals happen once, and the reuse is automatic. And it also means that the evidence is generated by the pipeline and not by people's opinions. Sometimes I can't handle people's opinions. So, for example, a data classification that goes to pipeline behavior. So the risk tier then becomes the deployment gate. And the audit trail leads to the version control and the logs. And this is a governance as code approach. It needs to live in the pipeline, otherwise it doesn't exist, because otherwise I can just like work around this. And we don't want me to work around that, because I find ways. You will find ways as well, and your users will find ways either. So the key shift in your mind is from can we approve this to does it comply by design? So we need to make it that way that it complies by design. So this Tiger team, that is an anti-committee. One mission, one backlog. It is full-time. The time is protected for 90 days. Authority is delegated upfront, and the decisions are made where the work actually happens. That is important. Paved road beats your so-called best or good practices, because best practices always fail because they are optional, and they live in slides, and they are ignored under pressure, and you will get under pressure, because you got to deliver, right? And you have deadlines. So the key insight here is people don't follow your standards, they follow the easiest path. So that means you need to make the compliant and secure path the easiest path. If a process is harder to circumvent than to follow, it is a failure as a process. You heard that before as well. So, non-negotiables. Start with real workflows, no fake workflows. Not use cases, not something from the list, but just like see where do you experience pain in your organization. Could be, wow, we make tremendously often mistakes here. Or it takes a whole lot of effort to do this. Or we do not have the right people to do this. Or we lose money, we lose customers, we are unhappy. Find the pain in your organization. Don't ask people, hey, is there something that you want me to do with AI? That is the totally wrong question. We do not want to do something with AI. We want to solve the pain inside of our organizations. And if AI and agentic, if that is part of the solution, then yes, happy to work on that. But just like doing AI for AI's sake because everyone is doing it, remember Dan Ariely? That is wrong. We need to have an owner per outcome. And the program only works because it accepts the brutally ugly reality of your organization. So the outcome is not just yet another AI system. It is an organization that now knows how to decide and how to own and how to ship and how to live with the consequences. So yes, you now have just like one super cool use case running in prod, and you can tap yourself on the shoulder, and you can, I don't know, send me a thank me note on LinkedIn. You can oh, this is that. So you can do all of that, but just like the real reward is that you learned how to ship something so that it can safely run in prod, and not just like have the ugly duct tape solution running on your machine. And this is how you escape the POC prison permanently. So a little bit more of an escape plan from a technical side. If I have an agent, define the agent authority explicitly. Not, hey, what can this new model that now costs, I don't know, 57 times more than the regular one, what can that model do? Holding it wrong again. But what decisions may this agent make? What actions may it execute autonomously? Where is human approval mandatory? Think in delegated authority, not intelligence. It's not intelligence. Second, super important, start with bounded agents. No general purpose, can do everything and sit your kids and vacuum clean the living room. No, that is not a good agent. So successful agents own a super narrow task. They operate in one system. They have measurable outcomes. Measurable, that is a keyword here. So for example, classify and route incoming cases, never resolve them. Super cool use case for a first agent. If you can have run that in prod, you can even have just like the more elaborative one that then just like reasons over a knowledge base and then replies with that knowledge base article to your user providing first aid, and then asks, hey, shall I create a ticket for you? And then creates the ticket if the user wants that, and locks the ticket and replies and already gives just like distributes that just like to the likely best person who can solve the ticket eventually. So we can do that as well later on, but we focus too much on what the agent may be doing in an ideal scenario rather than just like making sure that I can deploy any agent, any, regardless. So what we do is we make agents first-class citizens in governance, and that means your agent needs to have an identity. So if my agents run in my user context using my login and change records, and in the field modified by, there's just like, yeah, modified by Luise, then we can't distinguish anymore was this record modified by Luise or by one of Luise's agents. And that obviously will create a compliance nightmare. And yes, we need to make compliance a little bit more first-class citizen as well. We also need to have a named business owner and audit logs. I know sounds boring, but isn't boring if you have an incident. And kill switches, yes, still. So we're back to the 90s. So basically, we treat the agents like junior employees with an extremely narrow job description. And 4, please, production readiness before cleverness. A boring and very reliable agent in prod beats a super, super clever one that only lives in your slide deck or in your fantasy or only on your machine. So we will prioritize deterministic behavior and monitoring and the fallback paths and the clear failure models. So POC Prison is very rarely a tech problem, unfortunately. Organizational mirror that reflects unclear accountability and immature governance are delegated decision making back to you. So that is what you see in the mirror. And the AI agents that just make those gaps more impossible to ignore. So those gaps have been there before, and they will continue after this AI or agentic wave, but the agents will expose those even more. So this is what most companies think, what AI into prod looks. So we have a cool idea, we apply the AI model, we get some value, and then we have value in production. And unfortunately, just like to sum up the presentation, the full picture of why most organizations are stuck is like that. So we have this data layer, which means selection of data, sourcing of data, cleaning of data, poor data quality, needs to be cleaned, needs to be transformed, so the entire ETL pipeline. Then the delivery pipeline to the right environment, the operationalizing cycle of deployment, monitoring, retraining, support of all of the models that you're using, then governance, risk, compliance. That is value in production, but to arrive there, we walk on a path. And if we want to enter the POC prison loop, that first means we need to survive the innovation theater. So the executive demos and the clapping of the audience. So this is the organizational checkpoint. And then we have the funding fragmentation. So there is no AI budget in your organization, but there is fragmented budgets. And that fragmented budget, yet again, the golden rule, that leads to fragmented experiments and no strategy at all and no overarching umbrella. And then, of course, there is political forces at work as well, like someone who in the org chart is not important at all, but calls the shots behind the scenes. Oh, was that your organization? Okay. Yeah, so it happens. So, or just like someone who may apply a silent veto, and instead of saying, no, I don't like this, they will delay and defer and then it just like runs out because at some point no one has energy to pursue this anymore. And then the safe zone, of course, is we just like stay in the safe sandbox. We'll just like stay there because it is not worth it. And if you are the techie person who solved their personal problem using an agent that is not in prod, but you don't care because that is a dev environment you have access to, so for you it runs in prod, but you can't roll this out, but it solves your problem, then yes, you're the lucky one because you have the ability and the access to the tools, but just like the 2K or 20K or 200K, depending on the size of your organization, other users don't have this luck. So to really have just like innovation as performance, we need to conclude all of that, and we needed to build the paved road first so that we do not need to make all those detours and just like go to trails that are just like super, super cumbersome. So we needed to just like establish those paved roads. So I have homework for you. Who's up for homework? I always give homework. You like homework? I know it's a long weekend, but we do homework. So if you want to have your agents run in production, first, you got to take care of your data readiness, because most organizations, they aren't ready for that. So messy ops data and super inconsistent schemas and outdated knowledge bases, and there's no lineage, and there's missing metadata, and there's no clear ownership at all. So we need to make sure that we have better data, because this is a shit in, shit out problem. Yet again, remember that, okay? So that is first homework. Second homework is workflow clarity. And workflow clarity also means process maturity. And that is a super, super big one for going from a POC to production, because if you have unclear decision ownership, if you have super ambiguous escalation paths, like, yeah, some Nepo baby is involved as well, or just like someone calling the shots behind the scenes, then you will likely not be able to succeed. If you have undocumented tribal knowledge, so like failed to make the implicit knowledge explicit, bad, then business decision logic hidden in some spreadsheets, and no one knows which one is the final version 2B file. Yeah, that happens to the best of us, but better would be just like to have something that is a data estate, so just like a platform that actually surfaces our data and not fragment those into spreadsheets as well. So processes that only work because human improvised. So if I throw just like a lot of human power, just like on the messy process, yes, it can still work, but I now depend on those people. And yes, lucky them, they have a job guarantee, but that doesn't mean that I am a mature organization and that I will be able to solve that AI challenge. Next part of the homework, integration surfaces. So if your AI adventures shall be more than a chatbot, if your AI needs to do things rather than replying to you or say, yeah, I summarized the email to you. Wow, I'm so impressed. So then, yeah, real APIs and not just like some inboxes. And we need to have event-based triggers and stable connectors. And we need to have idempotent actions, like not billing someone twice, just like because the button appeared there, and monitoring the microservices. Next homework for you, permissions and identity model. So I know auth is hard, but enterprise blockers always come from security, not from your prompts. And that means please have service principle. Please apply the principle of least privilege. Please have audit trails available, so that is not a nice to have. Role separation, human in the loop design, but not every single thing needs to be approved by a human person. Then data boundary clarity. Part 5 of your homework, observability and diagnostics. You will spend months on debugging ghost behavior if you don't have logs and traces and a run history and conversational threads and tool call telemetry. So those need to exist in conjunction with your pipelines. Next part of your homework, knowledge lifecycle management. I know this sounds like very, very people-y, but trust me, your rock will break when your knowledge ages, and knowledge does age as well as data ages. So there is a knowledge decay, obviously. So we need to have versioning and updates and review cycles, and state content detection, and of course, canonical truth sources, and maintaining vector stores. So that is homework for you. One more. Change management and adoption. I know, yet again, sounds super people-y. Find people who excel at people. If you excel at just like talking to machines, human side is more important than the model that you use. So do comms and training and expectation setting. So they need to know what they embark on. And you need to update the roles and the task, and you need to align with the stakeholders. And yes, find the right person who is able to communicate and even communicate across roles. Super important to have that. Next one, safety and guardrails, especially outside of the POC prison. So we need to have content filters and prompt shields and reversible intent detection and escalation to humans, as mentioned, and auditability, and obviously compliance verification. Your multi-agent orchestration strategy. So obviously, one agent is nice, but an army of agents is nicer, and that means you need to have orchestration flows and a fallback logic. So what happens if that agent is for some reason not available? How can I fall back and recover safely so that I do not affect my user? You need to have routing strategies. You need to have a multi-source grounding, conflict resolution, and deterministic workflows to recover from that if something goes wrong, and trust me, it will. And last but not least, governance and lifecycle strategy. And that means versioning, evaluation pipelines, model updates, deprecation plans. Everything has a life cycle. Everything has a life cycle. Artifacts in source control and CI/CD for all of your agents. It's a good thing to take a picture of that. Yes, please do so. So if you need any help with that, call me. Now, you learned all of that, and some of you might be saying, yes, but can we just start with a POC just to see if that thing is working? Or if leaders say this to me, then this means we want to reduce risk, and we want to have the evidence before. I do not want to buy the cat in the bag, and we want to learn first. So however they phrase it, they first want the result without putting in the effort. And that usually means we do not want to commit ownership. We do not want to touch governance yet because we know it's a mess. We don't want to change how work actually runs. So they are not just like in the position for change. And that ugly truth is POC without a path to production, that is not learning, that is a lot of avoidance. And you can see this already with just like other projects. So if you, I don't know, had an IoT adventure in your company, or you had an ML adventure in your company, or you had a cloud adventure in your company, just like, or whatever transformation that was, it was probably the very same thing. It was just like that users were not as affected, and it was not as publicly visible as the entire agentic AI discussion. I have one last slide for you. It's not that one, obviously. I would love to connect with you, so this is my LinkedIn. If you like to have the slides, just like connect with me and text me hot pink. Also, do not forget to rate the session. Thank you so much.